I've noticed that actually a lot of people that I speak to at work, so clients, but then also people that I meet like socially. That's a big thing of, yes, I have friends, but we don't get into the nitty gritty. Correct. Or they're not with me like in the trenches or in the depths of things. And I think that's really important to understand the kind of people that you have in your life. The kind of friends. Not all your friends have the capacity to go through storms with you.
Let's talk DXB. Real conversations by real people. Dr. Bisi. Hi. We're here. We made it.
Finally.
From a conversation last year.
Yeah, I think November.
Right.
Yeah.
Where's the time gone?
I know.
But I'm so grateful for your time because I know you are busy. Yes. The field that you're in, you must be busy. But when we spoke last year and we connected, I think the topic just came quickly. I was like, yeah, this is what we're going to talk about. And obviously you're an expert as a psychologist as well. So kind of what you have seen and experienced, obviously confidential without naming clients, but loneliness and friendship. I feel like a lot of people tell me about this actually. And not just saying it's a Dubai issue, but I think as expats or living in Dubai away from family, that can be heightened sometimes, especially when you go through difficult times. And I've experienced it 11 years in, but you know, really building strong friendships. But I don't want to go straight into it yet. Let's kind of learn a bit more about you because I think it's relevant. You've actually moved to Dubai recently. So you're starting all over and having to build your tribe. So let's hear about you and how you came over to Dubai.
Okay. So I've been here it's been a year now.
Actually, yeah.
I clocked 1 year, maybe like 2 weeks ago.
Oh, congratulations. Yeah.
I've passed like my 1 year mark.
Amazing.
How did I come to Dubai? I think I hadn't really planned on coming.
Okay.
But I think the stage of life that I was at and wanting something different, wanting something new, an opportunity came up and I thought, why not?
Wow.
Literally, what's the worst that can happen?
If
it doesn't work out,
I can go back.
Exactly.
I love that.
So I took the opportunity, been here a year now, and I'm starting to feel settled. I'm starting to get my own rhythm,
Makes sense.
my own momentum. And I'm enjoying it.
And it does take, and that's, I think you at least, you have to give yourself grace, whether it's Dubai, wherever else you kind of, I've only really done the transition UK, Dubai actually, but there are people that have moved quite a lot and each time it is starting again because as an adult as well and having to build a tribe, make friends, whatever it may be, new work colleagues, it's all, I think it shows a character. It takes a certain person to be willing to take up something new and come over. So that's quite brave as well. Because the later we get in life, it can be harder to start all over again and move somewhere. And it takes time.
It does.
It takes time.
It does.
People get frustrated because they think, I'm going to come, it's going to be great. 3 months, I'll meet everybody and then I'll get on with it. But it's not the case at all.
And I think that was me. I didn't realise that I wouldn't adjust so quickly.
Right.
So I felt that frustration a lot last year until I had a bit of a mindset change where I just spoke to myself and said that I need to give myself grace.
Yes.
It's a new place. It's a new city. It's a new environment. It's a new culture.
Yes. Yeah.
Even though I was practicing as a psychologist back in the UK, it's different.
Yes.
And I don't think that initially I gave myself that space to explore, that space to make mistakes, that space to not know, and that space to be curious. I just wanted to like get into things. Exactly.
It's good that you say that because I think a lot of people, obviously Dubai is a place where so many people want to come, the opportunities, the convenience, etc. And I've had friends that have come obviously after me and they always ask me questions like, you just need to give it time. You need to scope it out. You need to give it time. Making friends takes time. There's always so much to do in Dubai. I feel like the social scene was way more than the UK. Now I'm like in my routine, I'm boring. But when I first came, I was like, let's go. But then I was like, true friends, like maybe like a handful. And I'm okay with that now because obviously I've gone through seasons and I've really sussed out who are my people and who are for me. But it can take time to build those friendships as well. And I think when we were talking, that was one of the topics that you mentioned. A lot of people struggle to really have those like solid friendships where it's not about like going out or doing a brunch or, you know, it's actually the substance of I'm in my house. Can we have a deep conversation about what I'm facing?
Absolutely. Or I'm in need. Are you going to be there for me? Yeah. So, and even though like loneliness and this issue of friendship isn't necessarily a clinical issue, it was something that I noticed quite quickly in the clinic.
Right.
So at Sage, we were seeing people come in with relationship difficulties, and relationship not just in the context of romantic relationships, in the context of friendships.
Really?
And not having those rich and meaningful relationships, and or having a group, but feeling empty.
That's the thing.
Being in the midst of people but feeling lonely. And that's what loneliness is. Loneliness isn't the absence of people around you. That's not what loneliness is. Loneliness is when you feel dissatisfied with the quality of those relationships. Yeah.
Oh, you've explained it so well, actually. Because I think a lot of people, and I maybe would sit there and be like, the loneliness is I'm sitting by myself. I don't have anyone around me, actually. Or, you know, I'm just in my living room by myself and it's quite lonely. But actually, you've explained it in the right way, because you can see people very, very social, very popular.
Absolutely.
But they'll still say, I'm quite lonely. And I could never understand that before, because I'm like, you know so many people. But it's not about that, actually.
Yeah, it's a subjective experience, because on the other side, you can see someone who maybe has 3 or 4 friends.
Yeah.
And they are completely satisfied and they feel fulfilled in those relationships. Yeah. So it's a subjective experience based on what you need as an individual, and are those relationships meeting those needs in a way that is enriching? Yeah, and in a way that's satisfactory.
Yeah, makes sense. And I think, how do you identify or articulate that? You know, especially when you're somewhere new. You're like, I'm just going to say yes to everything and figure out who are my people. You figure out your people, but you don't really cross that level to say, you know, my dynamic of friendship, true friendship, looks like this. Sometimes you settle for, they're cool, you know, I feel safe with them. That's my friend. But how do you really go deep and articulate, this is what I expect in a friendship, in a relationship, especially when you're new somewhere? Yeah, that's interesting.
I think, so just going back to what you said about saying yes to everything, that was one of the pieces of advice that I got.
That's what I was told.
Before I came here.
Yeah.
And that kind of set me up.
Really?
Yeah, because I'm not a say yes person.
Yeah, okay. I'm with you there.
I'm not a say yes to everything, because I know myself.
Yes.
And I know my values.
Yep.
And when you say yes to everything, if you're not careful, you can compromise on your values and you can compromise on who you are.
Yes.
And then you end up finding yourself in friendship circles that are not a true reflection of who you are.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's where that dissatisfaction comes in, right? Yes. And that's where that loneliness starts to show.
Right.
Yeah, so it's really important that you think about what you're saying yes to and why you're saying yes. Are you saying yes because you don't want to be stuck at home on a Friday night?
By yourself.
And that's fair.
Yeah.
Right? That's fair. But if it's causing you to compromise your values and the core of who you are, then it's okay to say no. Yeah.
Bisi? You've just helped so many people, because that's the advice. Say yes, go out, meet. And there is that element, network, meet people. But that's why I would say you filter through your people. Absolutely. Because it has to be people that you want to be around, you enjoy being around, you feel safe around. Yeah. You're not adapting who you are. Absolutely. Or falling. Like, I have a cousin here, I was like, I will never fall for peer pressure. I'm okay. I actually like my own company a lot. Even when I was married, like my dad way back, he's like, when you get married, it might be a problem because you love being by yourself. And it might have been now through therapy, a protective barrier of like, if I let people in, if they disappoint me. So I'm
they're gonna
deep
hurt
down.
me.
Yeah. But I'm cool to sit and watch and laugh by myself. And also, I don't want to like, if I don't feel like it's an environment where I really feel like I'm going to enjoy myself, I'm doing it to please someone else. And there is an element of like, if it's a family member, I will make the effort to go out, or a good friend. But I think it's having those boundaries to be like, do I actually need to be in this space? Absolutely. Do I need to be around these people? Yeah. That is fantastic. Yeah. So when you get people come and say, you know, I feel quite lonely, how do they navigate that? Because it can be quite a heavy emotion to deal with. Yeah.
And I think that, because again, it's not like a clinical presentation. So it's not like you've met the threshold or the criteria for depression or an anxiety.
Correct.
I think that for some people, it's like, am I being childish, or am I being silly?
Right.
Yeah, and it takes a lot for people to actually name the fact that they feel lonely.
Yes.
Especially if they've been here for a while.
That's even harder.
Yes, and they've got family and they have friends and they have a community. To actually label and say that I'm feeling lonely, or I feel like something is missing, can be a hard thing. Yeah. So the first thing that I do is to validate that.
Right. That's nice.
Is to validate that and to let them know that actually I hear you.
Wow.
Yeah, and I appreciate that you have shared that with me, and I'm going to hold that space.
I love it.
And then let's work through, okay, what is it that you need?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's first that kind of like validation, but also normalizing. Do you know how many people feel lonely? A lot of people feel lonely, and a lot of people feel lonely in this Dubai.
Yeah. Do you know what? And I feel like that's what's not touched on. I think there's a bit of an embarrassment around it, or like, how can I not have friends? Or maybe, like you said, maybe I do have friends. So how can I have all these friends and still feel what's wrong with me? Yeah. So it's good that you can validate and say, actually, it's quite a normal feeling that a lot of people face. And I think for expats anyway, you're away, you're removed. If you're fortunate enough where you've got your family here, fantastic, but you're removed from that. So you also have to battle that, like, my family dynamics are not how they used to be. I've left that alone. I'm sacrificing this. So you face a lot of different like waves of emotion.
Absolutely. And even if you are coming with your family, you're not coming with your entire network.
Your tribe. Yeah.
Exactly. You're not coming with your tribe.
Correct.
You're not coming with everybody on your road. You're not coming with your neighbours. You're not coming with all your colleagues. So there's still an element of change that requires some level of adjustment. And as an adult, that can be scary. Because as an adult, you're supposed to have it all together. Right? You're supposed to know what you're doing. After all, you made the decision to come
here.
Well,
no one
for those that made the decision to come. Some people, I guess, they come with spouses or for other reasons. But for people that make the decision to come, it's like, well, I've made this decision, so I need to suck it up. But two things can coexist. So you could have made the decision. You could have been excited about being here, but also be struggling to connect and struggling to adjust.
Love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that you've just like helped to normalize it and like take away that barrier of like, talk about it, it's okay, and this is why it would be this. It's completely normal to feel that way as well.
It is.
So how have you found friendships in terms of like, because I say like Dubai for me, I've been here, I'm coming to my 11th year, so it's been, and I've been so blessed because people move all the time, right? And I don't want to jinx myself, like, but I've had the same solid group that are here.
Very blessed.
I've seen them go through marriage, kids, everything. And it's safe. It's a safe space. And I knew that more so through my divorce. I isolated. And because I like my own company, but I was isolating for other reasons, naturally, figuring it out, getting my head together. They gave me the space because they know me. They didn't push me, like they didn't push me. They're like, I will check in once in a while, but I'm not going to harass you. Or, Sharon, this is too much. Just try and come and meet with us and let's sit. So it was like, release. Because if you don't have that here, I don't know what I would do without having that kind of like silent voice or silent push. It can be really difficult as well. But then even thinking about making new friends, that's not easy. As an adult, that's not easy to do.
It's not.
So
it's quite scary.
It's scary, right?
It's scary.
Yeah, you have to put yourself out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Have you found like going to a lot of networking things, or like, did you know anybody when you came?
So I was fortunate in that my best friend lives here.
Hold on, Bisi. Okay, you had at least that.
Yeah, so I had a couple of really good friends.
Amazing.
So not just the one friend.
Good.
I had like a couple of really good friends here. And then I knew people that had moved out.
Nice.
But in saying that, I like having friendships in different areas, and I like categorizing my friends.
I'm like that.
And a conversation that my best friend had and I had before I came, she was like, I want you to find your own way here.
Good.
I don't want you to live in my shadow. Like, we'll do things together, and we have our own like tradition that we do where we meet every other Sunday for lunch, and that's our time.
Nice.
And then outside of that, it's you find your friends, you do your thing, I do my thing. And I think that that's actually a healthy way to have a relationship.
It's good that she did that. Yep.
Absolutely, because what can happen is that I could attach myself to her and not really find my own way. And we're different.
Correct.
Yeah, we have shared values, but we're different.
Yeah,
right?
Nice.
So I think for me, having that was good.
Yes.
But at the same time, I did struggle.
Right.
And I struggled because, like I mentioned earlier, I said yes to a lot of things.
Right.
And I found that draining.
Too much.
I found it very expensive.
Yes. Overwhelming sometimes as well.
Overwhelming.
Yeah,
and
get it.
I attended a lot of networking events, but I'm a talker.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like conversation
Yeah, I
and I
can
like
tell.
deep connection.
Yes, yeah.
And I felt like a lot of the connections that I was making was very superficial.
Yeah, it's quite surface level.
Yeah, and that's not me.
Yeah.
I actually find that very draining.
Yes.
Because I'm like, and I really don't get.
Yeah.
It's not me.
It's not
So
cool.
knowing who you are is really, really important. For me personally, what I did was I joined a faith community as soon as I could.
Good.
Because that is a fundamental part of who I am.
Nice.
I was also very blessed in that my colleagues, I learned this new word called froligs.
What's that?
Froligs are friends that are also your colleagues.
Okay, that's a thing. That can happen. Yeah, so you've built that with them as well.
Yeah, so we have a good relationship like with the team. So I had a couple of boxes ticked.
Good, yeah.
But then in terms of like hobbies and personal things that I liked, it was really just going out there.
Yeah.
And it's doing things that I like. And then when you meet people in that space, there's already a commonality.
Yeah.
Like they wouldn't be in that space if they didn't really enjoy that thing. Exactly. So there's already a shared interest.
Got it.
And we know that shared interests it's a really good fundamental for building relationships.
Yes, yeah.
So that was that. And then also not neglecting my relationships back home.
I was going to talk to you about this because I have, that ship has sailed within 10 years. To be fair, if I'm actually honest, there's a colleague of mine who's recently moving back. And you know what I love about her move back? She's super excited. She has her husband, her daughter. She has kept her tribe back to the point where like her daughter's slotting into the school with her friends. She's got solid friends back home. She's got her group of mums and friends. Her husband is good. I did not do well with that at all. Yeah, that is so important.
It's hard though.
Yeah,
it's
that's
hard.
true. It's
When
a lot
you
of
move,
effort.
exactly. When you move here, you moved with your family.
Yes, correct.
So you're not just adjusting, you're trying to adjust your child.
Very true.
As well.
Yes.
And your husband.
Yes.
The time,
true.
right?
Yes,
so
correct.
There's a lot to do. And then also work. And then the cultural aspect.
Yes.
And it works in both ways. Like your friends back home need to be understanding
Equally.
and need to be accommodating.
Correct.
And if there isn't that kind of like mutual understanding and mutual support, it makes it difficult to keep those relationships.
It's going to drop off. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it's really important to keep those relationships.
It's so good.
But appreciate that those relationships change and they probably will change.
That's the thing. So how do you accept that? I mean, I'm using it in the sense of, I've heard a lot of stories about friendships, not again in Dubai because I'm in Dubai, but I'm sure this is happening across the world. But in terms of like, people change, right?
Yeah.
Expectations change. People will shock you.
Absolutely.
Navigating that, because I hear a lot about boundaries. Set your boundaries, set your boundaries. What does that even mean? Like for me, actually, going through my divorce, I would say like in life, like the happiest times are either through marriage, becoming a mother, maybe even the difficult times.
Yeah.
You tend to lose people in those seasons. It seems to be a pattern.
Yeah.
And I couldn't figure it out. And for a long time, I was like, no, that can't be. That person can't be that. It's me. You know, when you're like, I'm in denial. How do you navigate these friendships that break down or when people disappoint you? I'm not very good at vocalize. I'll just disappear.
Yeah.
I own it. It's a very unhealthy habit, but I'm like...
That's unhealthy.
I'm in therapy, but I will...
No judgment.
Yeah, no judgment. I will go MIA because I don't want to address it. You've hurt me too much, which is my protective layer of like, why did I open up too much? But that is really tough.
Yeah.
That is like, that's really painful.
Yeah. But you know what, Sharon? People will disappoint you.
Oh.
The reality.
My heart just jumped.
No,
then.
but we disappoint ourselves sometimes.
You're right.
We let ourselves down sometimes. Like, I'm going to be here at 5:30. Oh, it's 5:40.
Yeah.
I've let myself down.
Yeah.
Right. So we extend grace to ourselves, but we also extend grace to others. But then also people change. Something that my mum says to me is that you're not a tree. You can move.
Wow.
And we evolve.
Yeah.
You come to Dubai, you change as a person. Your perspective of life can change, can evolve, because you're now engaging and interacting with different people, different communities. Something that maybe your mind may not have been open to, or something that your eyes may not have been exposed to. You're now seeing it, right? So you evolve, you change. And sometimes some relationships and some friendships, they can't carry that change.
That's true.
And it's okay to let those relationships go. And they don't have to end in a dirty or in a horrible way.
Yeah.
You can create boundaries, or you can even just gradually grow
move
apart.
away.
Exactly. Gradually move apart. And something that I guess I think about with my clients is that there's some conversations that need to be had, but then there's some conversations that don't need to be had.
Let's talk on that, please. Because that I probably, maybe throughout everything, I'm like, there's some conversations that just don't, but that is not correct. There are some, I need to grow in feeling able to have these difficult conversations rather than hiding away from it. Because I think if you show me something and you shock me in that way, I'm running. I go into scare factor, like, who are you? And through therapy, my therapist is like, you need to stop saying this, because I was like, I would never do that. My dynamic of a friendship is, because I'm very loyal. So I'm like, I would never do that. And if you show me that, I run. But then equally, I think sometimes you have to accept it's okay, maybe not to have those. But how do you decipher that?
I think first of all, like you just said, asking yourself, am I running?
Yeah, okay.
So am I not having this conversation because I'm avoiding and I don't want the confrontation?
Yeah, got it.
Because you don't necessarily have to confront, you can approach the situation.
Like that. Yes,
right?
Yeah.
Or actually, I know this person and maybe they don't have the same level of insight or awareness as I do on this topic.
Yes.
So having this conversation will be like hitting your head against a brick wall.
Got it. Okay.
And you're not necessarily going to get anywhere. It's not going to be fruitful.
Exhausting.
Exactly. It's going to be exhausting.
Understood.
And it might actually be more damaging to the relationship and also maybe damaging to like your sense of self.
Got it.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's about asking yourself those questions. But then also remembering that what loyalty means to you is different from what loyalty might mean to me.
Yeah.
And when we exist in community, when we exist in a relationship, what we want is we want to accept the person for who they are.
True.
And also who they're not. Right?
Oh gosh. Bisi. I should have met you about 2 years ago. There's some things.
Yeah. And like people change as well. So I might do something to hurt you.
Yeah.
In my mind, like, why would that hurt Sharon?
Got it.
And then you're like, Bisi, that hurt me.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I remember, when I do this to Sharon, or when I say this to Sharon in this way, she doesn't like it.
Yes.
It's a learning opportunity for me. And that could actually bring us closer.
Yes.
And that could strengthen the relationship and strengthen the friendship.
Yes.
Which sometimes we miss because we're like, oh my gosh, she showed me who she was. Like, how could she do that?
Yeah.
And then you run away.
Yeah.
And you've both been denied an opportunity to explore it,
Very
to
good.
discuss
Yeah.
and move forwards together.
Wow.
Right?
There's so many dynamics to that as well. That literally when you're sitting there, I was like, oh, maybe I could have done better with this. But then equally, I think for me, I mean, the season, there was one friendship that I withdrew. And to be honest, I think it was the right thing, because I also tell myself not everyone's going to make it to the finish line.
Absolutely.
I'm only just accepting that, because it can be hard, right? And when you are loyal, I tend to be quite guarded with my space and not opening up. And if I let you in and if you show me that, it can be hard to then actually let go. Because I'm like, well, no, it can't be this. But then also I had to sit there in the season of like, because there was a lot of losses during my divorce, my marriage, my family dynamic, a friendship, my house, everything. There was losses. I used to say it's the season of like the wilderness season. But then I had to also sit there and accept in this season, there will be a new.
Yes.
And not everyone is going to come into that new, as painful as it is.
Yeah.
But that took me time to understand that as well. And through therapy, I had to navigate that and actually talk about it and say, do you know what? This is actually what's happened, and I've moved away from this person because of this, because I couldn't really understand what happened, but I just knew I needed to take myself away. And I've come to acceptance that unfortunately, that's just the reality of life sometimes. It's hard.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're like really self-aware.
Oh, I've done some work.
Yeah,
I've done
and you
some
know
work.
yourself.
Yes.
So for you, taking yourself away means that you reduce all that background noise, so you can think and navigate and think, okay, what do I need in this moment, and what is helpful for me?
Yes.
And that's really important. Being self-aware is important for your relationship with yourself, but then also your relationship with others, whether it's friendships, family, romantic relationships.
Yes.
It's really, really important.
Yeah. And actually touching on self-awareness, because that's a word that I've heard a lot. And I've intentionally, my therapist was like, you're a bit hard on yourself. I was like, nope, I need to tear myself. Like I want to critique, but in a healthy way, not just like put myself down, but I want to look at both sides and be able to, so when I meet this again, because like you said, in life, people will disappoint you. Am I dealing with it while I'm running away? Or actually am I dealing with it knowing that this chapter's closed and I'm at peace with that? So I had to do a lot of that self-awareness. But in terms of like advice around that, because I think that, like you said, it resonates in friendships and a lot of like relationships, like romantic relationships. I think people need to work on that in order to like stay in it or remove themselves. Like, how have you found that in terms of people working around building up self-awareness and being more conscious of doing it?
Okay. First bit of advice that I would give is to slow down. Yeah. Slow down because a lot of things that we do is automatic.
Yeah, true.
And we need that. So our brain just kind of like just stores things and it works on this kind of automatic basis. Otherwise, you hand me this mug and I'm trying to figure out how to hold it. It makes life long. Yeah. And it's not efficient.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the first thing that I would say is to slow down.
Right.
So when you slow down, you're reducing those kind of like automatic reactions and automatic responses.
Yeah.
a response that may not necessarily be needed for this kind of situation. Yeah, so you slow down by deep breathing, which is one of my faves.
Oh, I'm learning that. Yeah, in the mornings I'm trying to do more of that.
Just to calm the brain down, to calm the body down, to help you actually unpack what you're thinking. Yeah, so deep breathing. Again, taking yourself away from all the noise. Journaling is a big one. And I think that journaling is really great in that it helps you process your thoughts. It helps you get out your thoughts in its raw form.
Correct.
Without having to share it with someone in that raw form, which can be detrimental. Or which can be really hurtful.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, that's
so
good.
Journaling is a good way to become self-aware and just thinking about patterns. Okay, I'm reflecting. So in this situation, this is how I responded. I wonder why I responded like that.
Right.
I wonder what was coming up for me. How was I feeling? Was I feeling quite anxious? Was I in a bit of a mood?
Like that.
Was I tired?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And being able to understand that actually, okay, that day maybe I was a bit tired. So when I'm tired, maybe I have a shorter fuse. Yeah. Or when I'm really excited, maybe I just talk a bit too much. And that can be a bit intense in conversation with people. So it's just about sitting down and just thinking about how you're presenting or how you're behaving, how you're thinking in certain situations. And that's it really. And self-awareness is like a skill and it's a muscle that grows and gets sharper and better the more you practice, the more you engage. And I would say that it probably, I don't know what the research says on this, but it probably improves with age, because as you grow older, you know yourself a bit more. And you're confident, or you're typically confident in who you are, right, and more accepting of who you are as a person.
That is fantastic. These are skills I've been doing bits of, like journaling, not consistent enough. And I used to hear about it and I'm like, why would I just sit there and write in? But it literally was my brain dump. I can go back to pages and not even understand what I've written. My handwriting's terrible. But it was in that moment, it was like my brain dump of everything, because it's so much to absorb, especially when you go through a traumatic time or, you know, I was very much in survival mode. And probably I didn't breathe or sit. I was like, need to do this, I need to get out of this. So very much
and
in that moment.
sometimes being in survival mode is actually what you need to get through.
To push.
Exactly. To get through.
Correct.
It might not be the time to like sit down and start thinking about patterns. It's the time to keep going, because I need to survive. That's why it's survival mode, because you need to survive, get through this. And then when you're in a safe enough environment, not just physically, but also emotionally and psychologically, when you're in a safe environment, then you can start to process, then you can start to reflect and go on that journey.
Love it. And thank you for actually normalizing that, because I was saying that a lot and everyone's like, well, like, but I was like, I needed to get up and do. Like there was no option. You know, I have a small boy, I need to do. As exhausting as it was. And there's times I go to therapy, I'm like, I feel like I'm on a treadmill that just will not stop and I can't get off it. So then it was like, okay, now I need to stop. Now I need to kind of understand what just happened and who hurt me, or maybe who I hurt as well in that process. And now I'm in that healing, because it's the healing of like the mind, the body. There's so much around it as well, but there's stages to it. So you've articulated that so well. Yeah. Oh, you're my calm as well. Do you know how much I'm absorbing your energy? I'm like, I'm just going to go home and chill.
Mutual energy.
Mutual energy. I'm feeding off it as well. So I feel like when I was speaking about like friendships, there was like, you know, a lot of people have brought this up as well. And the stories I'm hearing around friendships and the hurt that has been around friendship and the disappointment, which I like that you said, people will disappoint you. You kind of have to take that on board as well. But there's a lot. And there, a lot of people are like, I've just set my boundaries or my wall is up. So I'm not even willing.
And that's a good point. There's a difference between a wall and a boundary. I want to talk
about that, yes. Yeah. Like, what is that difference? And how do you navigate maybe not having that wall because it's not the right approach? I don't know. Or being able to say, this is what I need and this is my boundaries, and I'm not going to move that goalpost. Yeah.
So when I think of boundaries and I think of walls, and I have quite a vivid imagination. So when I see a wall, I see something going from here all the way up.
That's literally what came to my mind.
And you can't see past it. So it's a no-go area.
Yes.
Whereas a boundary is a guideline.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a guideline. Like, stay within these lines.
Right.
Yeah, for your safety. Like when you park, right? Stay within these lines. It protects your car.
I like that.
People are less likely to scratch it or bash it. And that's what boundaries are. Boundaries are to ensure your safety and the safety of somebody else in a relationship.
Like it.
They shouldn't be these rigid walls that nobody can see over. And when you have a wall up, that usually indicates hurt and pain. Yeah, so it's like, okay, why is this wall up? Where is it coming from? Yeah, what is it a consequence of?
Yes.
Have I built it up as a protective mechanism? Yeah. Have I built it to separate me from people?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be hurt or I don't want to be rejected.
Protection. Yeah.
Exactly. Whereas a boundary is that, actually, Sharon, this is what I can tolerate. This is what I will accept in this relationship. Okay, those are your boundaries. That's what I'm going to respect as well.
Love it.
Yeah. So there's a difference.
Yeah. Now I get it. And I think also just knowing what your boundaries are, because that takes work, I think. Because even when you're talking, I was like, yeah, I think I have a few, but would I be able to articulate it to allow that other person to understand? For me, I think it was, am I comfortable to even say that? Like loads of people are like, I have my boundaries. What does that mean? What are they? Can you articulate that to me? How does that impact friendships? I think relationships a lot. I've been seeing lots of like conversations around boundaries with your husband, with your wife, with your partner, whatever it may be. And that to me was a bit alien, because I was like, well, that's your husband. Like what boundaries? But even in those dynamics, I'm hearing it's quite healthy to have that and mention that as well.
Yeah, I think boundaries are important for all relationships. Relationships with your children, with your boss.
Yeah. Oh, we have to touch on that.
With your partner, with your spouse, with your friends.
Yes.
Right? Boundaries are important to ensure that relationships are healthy.
Oh, that's a good point.
And that they thrive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Boundaries shouldn't be fixed. And when I mean fixed, I mean that boundaries can change.
Right.
Like,
okay.
We've just met.
Yeah.
Right. So there'll be certain boundaries. Don't touch me like that, or don't call me at 11 p.m.
Got it. Yes.
But as the relationship builds and as the relationship develops, the boundaries evolve to reflect that.
Yeah. Understood.
Right?
Yes.
So our boundaries, they don't have to be fixed.
Okay.
Our boundaries evolve as we evolve and as the relationship evolves. And also some people start to drift apart.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the boundaries need to be reflective of that.
Right.
The access that you had to me when we were like this.
It's no more.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, and with boundaries as well, I would say it's not one rule fits all, in that you don't need to say, oh, Sharon, these are my boundaries. But for some,
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, I was thinking right, because I always felt like you had to like list them and articulate. So,
not necessarily.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, that's interesting.
There might be some boundaries where I'm like, Sharon, I don't appreciate when you do X, Y, and Z.
Right.
But then there are other boundaries that we communicate through what we say. So, for example, I don't pick my phone up after 9 o'clock.
Oh, I like this.
Yeah, 2 certain people. I have people on my favourite list.
Got it. Yes.
So I don't pick, and I'm not going to start saying to everyone, oh, by the way, I don't pick up my phone. But 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, you call me after 9, I don't pick up. And you're like, Bisi, you don't pick up your phone after 9. I'm like, oh, yeah, actually, I don't pick up my phone after 9. Or if I've noticed that actually you're constantly calling me at that time, then I might say to you, oh, by the way, Sharon, I don't usually pick up my phone after 9 o'clock because that's my wind down time.
Love it.
Right? But it's not something that I need to announce on Facebook or Instagram.
Or my WhatsApp. Don't call me after 9. Yeah, I like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then there are other boundaries where maybe you need to state a bit more explicitly. Yeah,
nice.
Because maybe there's a bit of a grey area. Or if people have violated that, then you're like, actually, I find it disrespectful when you do X, Y, and Z. Or I find it disrespectful when people say this or when they do this. Yeah.
I need to practice this a bit more, because I don't talk about boundaries very well, because I feel like I'm giving orders or something. I don't know. Like I probably didn't understand it well enough, but you've really helped to break that down. I think it's patterns, right? So if you've got that discipline around, this is my shut off time, this is my me time, and then like you see that repeat, it completely makes sense as well. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Well, I'm going to have to think about this a bit more as well.
And that consistency is important for the other person.
You're right.
So that they know. Because if you're shifting it, they never know whether they're coming or going. Yeah. And then it's easier for boundaries to be violated. Correct. Or even you to get frustrated, like people aren't respecting my boundaries, or but also actually you're not consistent with it, right? You're not firm with it.
So they don't know. You said it one day, but it's different the next day as well. And I think it's also people accepting that. You know, like in a relationship, and maybe you've been that person for a very long time and you're only now exploring, I want to implement boundaries. So I need to talk about that. For some people, it'd be like, what do you mean? Like, what are we doing here? Like, I've heard like topics of, there shouldn't be boundaries. You're my wife, you know, like there shouldn't be boundaries. This is my husband. So it's open, you know. I feel like sometimes when you introduce that can also cause conflict. So it's hard to know how to navigate that as well.
And I think thinking about the way that these boundaries are introduced is important. Boundaries, it's not a punishment. It's not a prison sentence. It's to help you and it's to help me. And I think we need to hold that in mind. And if we're in a relationship, if we're in a friendship, there should be that kind of like mutual love, mutual care, mutual understanding. So me setting a boundary is not to punish you. Is not to keep you away from me. It's just so that we both know what lines can be crossed.
Got it. Yes. I think it's quite a mature thing, actually. I feel like it's a quite mature way to because communication is so important, as we know. It's a quite mature way to kind of do either indirect communication, because you're not spelling it out, you're looking at patterns, or you're vocalizing what you need, which I think is so important these days as well. I've never really been good about talking about what I need, actually. That's the topic as well. And in therapy, I'm like, she's like, you need to unpack that. And, you know, they go back to childhood, and I've always been that quite submissive child. You tell me what to do, I'll do it. I'm the bit like in work, I get on with things, and my therapist is like, you must be the ideal employee. But now I'm trying to, as I've gone through such a shift, be more vocal about, I don't like this, or I don't want to do this. And actually I'm putting myself and my emotions first as well. But that's come with probably going through something quite difficult to get me to do that. So I think that's another skill that probably people need to learn as well.
Absolutely. And you've hit the nail on its head. It's a skill.
Right.
And what happens with skills? When we first start something, we're not great at it, right? And it's with practice and using it over and over again that it strengthens that skill, and we start becoming more expert at using that skill. And like boundaries, communication, they're all skills. Our language, we learn it.
That's
true. And if we don't learn certain things in childhood, it might be difficult to communicate in that way as an adult, but we still can.
Do you know, I always feel like I'm going back to the childhood stuff. So I did a conversation with a child psychologist, and we were just talking about the impact of like behaviors as a child, or like what's been instilled in you, because I always say like therapists, they always go back to that and why. And she was talking about the foundation stages around that. So if you're not good at expressing what you need because you've been quite submissive, or you've been breaking that down as an adult, I feel like can be quite hard. Hence why I found it hard to articulate boundaries or talk about what I need. I'll just be like, I don't want to rock the boat, or I'll run away and avoidant personality. But as an adult, how do you kind of break that down? Because you're having to reprogram. That's how I saw it for myself anyway. I think that's quite hard.
It's hard.
What?
But it's possible.
Yeah, that's true.
I think that we learn in a space of safety and security. And I think that the therapeutic space is such a great space to explore those things. In that kind of therapy space, you are able to practice, get things wrong. Therapist is maybe able to like draw things and pull things out of you, challenge you a little bit, sit back, hold your hand as you explore things and look, you're like, I understand that. You're able to do all of that in the therapy space. And through that kind of relationship that you have with your therapist, it's also shifting your view and your experience of relationships, which you can take out into the real world, or which you can take out into other parts of your world.
Massively. Do you know, I've learned so much about myself. I think that's where that self-awareness, because I've done the work. I've learned so much about what I will and won't accept, and I feel comfortable saying that now. Before I'd be like, no, I don't want to seem selfish or whatever. And also like,
and how does it feel now?
It feels a bit lighter. It feels a bit normal. At first I used to be like, this is really uncomfortable, but I think it's helped me to think about, you know, again, if I was going to go into a new relationship, I think I can clearly articulate what I value and my morals and what I expect, and also hopefully be able to see if we're not aligned very quickly without being submissive to it and just kind of turning a blind eye. I think it will help me to process and really suss out if that person is for me or if I'm for them. So all of that self-awareness, as hard as it was, because I was like, I'm an adult, I should know who I am. I should feel very comfortable in who I am. But it took that season of like what just happened to my life? To then navigate all of that. So that is so important. I'm a big fan of therapy, and I never thought I would say that. You know, because back in the day, I've said this before, as West African culture, it was seen as there's something wrong with you, or the person is crazy, and the language that is not correct at all. So it took me a while to even normalize wanting to speak to a therapist and actually seeing the value in it as well.
But you know what's interesting is that, so you're Ghanaian.
Yes.
I'm Nigerian.
Yeah.
Therapy happens in our culture.
Tell me.
But it's just not called therapy.
What is it?
When you're sitting with an elder and you're discussing and you're sharing, it's still an act of talking and someone holding that space.
So true.
Right? It's still a form of therapy. You're just not sitting with like a doctor or like a psychologist or a specific type of therapist who's writing notes and who's asking you questions, but you're still exploring. Like when you're going for those walks in the, I don't know, back in the day, and I don't know, the gardens in Nigeria or something, and you're talking about your day, and you're like, this thing happened, and I'm just wondering, why is it happening like this? And they're like, okay, does it happen all the time? That's still a form of therapy, is it not?
You're right, Bisi. I've never, because I was like, tell me where, you are right,
But it's these labels that we put on it, and it's like, it's formalized it. It's formalized talking therapies. It's formalized a thing that has been happening for years. For years.
I never saw it that way. And the wisdom that comes out, because when you said that, anytime I speak to an elder, an auntie, and it's quite an open space and say, do you know how much lighter I feel? Or I'm like, oh, actually, or when they're willing to share, because I think sometimes as well, they can be quite closed to share, like, oh, actually, do you know what? I actually been through this, but I'm not going to cross that line and share that. But when you get that from them, it helps a lot. So you're completely right.
Yeah. But I do think that in saying that, because I've just remembered that we do have to be a bit cautious. And I think that sometimes when we bring like our family into these kind of situations, they start putting their own advice. Whereas when you're seeing like an objective therapist, my interest is in you reaching or meeting your therapeutic goals.
Yeah, got it.
My interest is you getting out of this space what you want to get out of it. My interest isn't you getting back with him or you going to apologize to her. So that all that family dynamics and all those friendship dynamics is removed.
It's less personal, isn't it? Personal. That is also important as well, because there can be a lot of voices, especially when you're making difficult decisions. Hence why I go back to, I isolated a bit from my friends, not because I don't think they'll give me bad advice or they, you know, I just needed to hear myself and sit with myself and be true to, it's a very difficult decision, but this is what I need to do. And I need to be able to carry that weight by myself first and not sway, because that in between is very difficult. So that is right. You're so talented at what you do. We didn't start with this, but I want to ask, like, how did you get into this field? And like, where did that passion come from? Because just talking to you now, I'm just like, wow.
So I had a nickname when I was young.
Okay.
And it's in Yoruba. It's called Bisi Laniyan, which basically means Bisi the talkative one. So growing up, everyone thought that I was going to go into law.
Right. Yeah. Fight cases. Because I can see that for you as well.
Cases,
yes, I can see
human
that.
rights law. And I'm like, if I go into law, I'm going to have to lie.
Yeah.
My
morals.
Yeah, exactly. That goes against my faith. That's not a good thing to do. I had no idea what psychology is. And I was in college and I had this friend. He was like, I'm going to apply for a degree in clinical psychology.
Right.
And I was like, what is that?
Yeah.
And then she told me what it was. And I was like, that's actually what I want to do. And I guess similar to a lot of people in this field, I'm just a curious person.
Nice.
Yeah. Growing up, I used to write a lot of stories. I used to read, and I kind of see therapy and being a psychologist as an extension of that.
Understood.
Yeah. It's about sharing our experiences. If there's an opportunity to rewrite parts, if there's an opportunity to actually hold the book up and read things that we've gone through, that's what this whole therapy, that's what therapy is essentially. And I've just always been interested in people, just curious.
Amazing. And when we started, you was like, I love what I do. And I can see that just from talking to you. I was like, you're just you're giving me that you're living in purpose and you're working in purpose. That is such a blessing to do that as well, to find what you're good at, to love what you do. And you're also serving and helping others, which I think is the biggest reward ever.
There are times when I'm sat with my clients and I get this wave of emotion, wow, I'm actually really, and I say this all the time, and I know it probably sounds cliche, but I'm really privileged that you're sharing this with me. I'm really privileged that you trust me.
That's it.
And you trust what I do, and that we're gonna work together through this. Like, I love it. I do love it.
You create a safe space for people to talk about things that they maybe even if they have like 10 people around them, they might not even feel comfortable. We're talking about the loneliness and the friendships, or having friends, but they feel like they can't break down
you can't
what
share
that is.
You can't share. You can't be open with your friends.
And that's the thing as well, because like when I was going through like my divorce and stuff, and I had friends that could come and sit in my house and I'd feel comfortable crying in front of them or whatever. But there's a lot of people and they're like, I'm struggling. I've been to brunch, for example. I'm smiling, I'm laughing, I'm drinking. I go home and the reality of life is hitting me, and I have nobody to just even sit there next to me in silence whilst I just digest or cry. I find that would be so hard. That is so hard to manage.
And I've noticed that actually a lot of people that I speak to at work, so clients, but then also people that I meet like socially. That's a big thing of, yes, I have friends, but we don't get into the nitty gritty.
Correct.
Or they're not with me like in the trenches or in the depths of things. And I think that's really important to understand the kind of people that you have in your life. The kind of friends. Not all your friends have the capacity to go through storms with you. And when you expect that for people that don't have it, you will be disappointed. And it will cause frustration. You have some friends or some people in your life that they are brunch friends. And you have to accept that. You have to accept that's the level of friendship. And that's the only thing that friendship can produce. You have friends that... So in psychology, so there's a particular... approach in psychology called interpersonal psychotherapy, which is something that I practice. And we look at this thing called an interpersonal inventory, where you almost take account for the people in your life. And you think about what kind of support do these people give. So you've got the practical support. Right, Sharon, I'm going to Carrefour. Do you want a lift?
Got it.
Or Sharon, I'm running late. Can you pick up my daughter? Then you've got the emotional support, like Sharon, oh my gosh, I'm going through it. And this is what's happening. Or I call you and you're like, Bisi, what's up? I hear something, your voice, like something's up, right? Then you have the social friends, maybe the friends that you go brunching with, like I mentioned earlier, or the friends that you go to the gym with. Then you have friends who may be there to offer financial support, right? So it's understanding the people that you have in your life and the kind of support that they can give. And if some people may cross more than one domain, some people only have the capacity just to provide that one thing.
You're right.
And if you're finding that actually there's a gap, there's a bit of a void, I don't have that much emotional support with the people that I have in my life, where else can I get that from? You can get that from therapy.
Got it.
But you can also make other friends or new friends, right? Or friendships that maybe have died down, not because of a particular conflict. You can like feed back into those friendships. You can nurture those friendships. So it's about being aware of who you have in your current life and your current circle. What kind of support do they provide? Is there anything that you can do to build that relationship or improve it in any way? Or is it a case of accepting the friendships or the relationships for what it is?
That helps so much. I've never heard of that actually, in terms of putting the different people into different buckets, because it lessens the disappointment.
Absolutely.
And then also you tap it, and the expectation. And then ideally if you had or 4 or 5, what it may be, you can tap in as and when. Do you know what? I just want to go out and have fun, and I don't want to talk about my problems. Or, you know, I really need an in-depth conversation. I need that person to be in front of me, or we go somewhere and I just let it all out. But then also I think you give grace to people, because everyone's got their thing going on, right?
Absolutely.
So then sometimes this is probably where I went quite into myself, because I was like, I don't want to seem like that person that is always like, this is hard. And I'm not good at articulating when I'm struggling with things. It all has to seem perfect, and which is not the way, and that's not the right approach. But then not everyone has the capacity to hold that weight, you know, like or they feel like I can't even help you in this, so I just avoid you, you know? And that's another thing as well. I feel like some people like, I don't want to hear it because I don't know how to help you. And
I guess in those kind of situations, you can say that, do you know what? I don't need you to do anything. I just want you to be there. You can't solve this situation. You can't take away these emotions and these feelings. And I'm not expecting you to. I just want you to be there.
That's nice.
Just be there.
No, I was going to say that's right. So it's for me to, or that person to then say kind of like, this is what I need. Yeah. Just sit next to me in silence sometimes. Yeah,
absolutely. And also for the other person to tolerate being able to not have the answers and not fix.
Yes.
Yeah. That's not what friendship isn't just about what I can do for you. It's about being there. It's about relationship. It's about connection.
Love it.
Connection isn't solely based on what I can do.
Yes.
Or what I'm bringing into this space. It's about being. You connect by being. Right?
You have explained it so well.
Yeah.
It's so true because a lot, and again, I think not just Dubai, but when you're new to somewhere, a lot of the times, like, oh, what can that person bring to my life? Who do they know? Like a lot of it can just be quite superficial, actually, definitely. Rather than I just want to be on this level with that person, or actually that person's got a goal and I think I can just be that sounding ear to help them achieve that goal. If they want to brainstorm with someone, like different types of things that you can draw out of people. Yeah, it's important.
Yeah, exactly. And like I like I mentioned earlier with the categories, some friends are there to network. Some friends are there to, or maybe not friends, some people are there to help you get further in your career.
True.
And being honest with yourself, and that's why I'm pursuing this relationship, is okay.
Do you know, I've had people that actually like, they'll meet like a new person, say we've just met and say, do you know what, Bisi, I really feel like this dynamic of friendship is going to look like this for me. Like that open and honest, rather than give it time and scope it out. They're like, do you know what, I'm very busy, but I feel like we can meet at least like once a month and have a really good conversation. And this is kind of what I can offer. I found that quite interesting to be that clear from the get-go. Yeah, I've never seen that before.
Yeah, I guess it's an element of knowing yourself, being aware, but boundaries.
You're right.
A reflection of boundaries, but also managing expectations. There's one person that I met on Instagram last year, July.
Okay.
I still have not met this person till this day. We're always messaging. Are you free this weekend?
I hate those ones.
Yeah, and I don't feel that sense of rejection.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I understand that they're busy.
Yeah.
When they're free, I'm busy.
Yeah? I love that.
So again, nothing is static and nothing is fixed.
Yeah, I love that because I get a lot of guilt around it. I overpromise things because I want to meet people. I want to be able to do, I'm that type of like helper personality, but then I get overwhelmed. I'm like, oh my gosh, I said I'm going to meet 5 people and I really can't even do that. And then I'm always like, sorry. It's too much. It's too much. I'm trying to get better at being like, do you know what? It might be 5 months until I can actually do something because my son or whatever. But that was overwhelming me for a lot. Yeah, especially through Let's Talk as well, because there's so many great people there that I'm seeing. But the reality of being able to meet you that regularly, it's just, no, with full-time work, it's hard. But I'm trying to set those boundaries around, set a date that is actually realistic, Sharon, rather than say, let's meet tomorrow evening. Because
and even a time. So you only have an hour for coffee. Saying that like, Bisi, I'd really love to meet you, but I only have an hour today for a coffee. Then it's 50 minutes and you're like, I'm really sorry, like I've really been enjoying this conversation, but I have to go.
Yeah, I'm not good at that. Yeah. I'll keep you here for 2 hours.
Me neither.
Like, I'm like, no. I'm like, oh, I'm late.
Me neither. I'm a talker.
It's good. Yeah. It sets the expectations early. Yeah. Do you know what? I have learned so much. Like I said, I've got a good group of friends and I feel like we're clear on like what type of dynamic of friendships, etc. But I think going forward, because you always meet new people, right? Absolutely. People leave. You have to keep evolving with your friendship circle. I've definitely learned a new way of addressing stuff, especially the tough conversations. I'm going to try not to run away often.
Let's not avoid these tough
it's the avoidance. I've got that personality sometimes where I'll just shut down and then like hide rather than address it.
Yeah. Well, that's a natural threat response though.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a natural threat response.
That's true.
Like, or if I say this, does it put the whole relationship in danger?
Yeah.
So a natural threat response is to want to avoid or run away.
Yeah, and that's something I know I've got that avoidance personality. Like I was doing like, again, self-awareness, which I've gotten better. Like I will talk through things now and I will try not to just kind of like go into my shell. But that works in, so many different ways. Well, excuse me. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I feel like I've just picked your brain for my own life. I'm like, what about this? Yeah, it's been fantastic.
Thank you so much for having me.
Needed. Yeah, I think it's going to be a blessing for a lot of people just to normalize that, feeling of loneliness, but how to address it.
Yeah.
being an adult trying to make friends is hard, and that's okay. And also having the superficial friendships and longing for something more and articulating that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You're so talented at what you do. Like, that's why I had to ask you, how did you get into this? Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Let's Talk DXB. Real conversations by real people.